How's it? Welcome along to Baz's Garage. Winter's on its way, it's getting cold, it's pretty nasty, can't go racing. So something that I've been meaning to do for a while is show you how to pull a governor out of a V-twin. So this is actually Dylan's engine that I've had sitting in my shed for a while. So finally, Dylan, I'm getting to pull it apart and pull the governor out for you and show other people how it works, okay? So this engine here is a Briggs V-twin. I'm not sure exactly of the size of it, doesn't really matter, I think they're all pretty similar. What we want to do is you want to remove the governor. So the governor here, usually attached to the linkage here, and this is what holds the power on when you're mowing lawns and things like that. So we've got to pull the pants off the bottom of it, get in there and pull the governor out so it doesn't fly apart when you're racing and end up causing damage to the engine. So first thing we're going to do is this rod here. We need to actually undo this, remembering it's imperial sizing because it's an American. So these are a 7/16. Undo the nut and the bolt, get rid of that, stick it out the way, and then this here should slide off, okay? So we don't need that. So this is the bit that we're going to pull out and plug the hole. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to undo the oil pump that sits on top of here, because there's a little rod that goes down in here and it spins the oil pump. You could pull it all off without doing that, but it's easier to put it back together and get that removed. So these are Torx bits, so you put them in here, and I'll just show you a little trick, because some of these are really tight and you can't undo them. So what you do is you grab the Torx bit, you stick it in here, you grab yourself a decent knockometer, like this one, and you give it a few whacks like this. What that does is it shock loosens the Torx bit. Now hopefully we can undo it. Okay, it becomes easier to undo. So we'll just see if this one's the same. Yep, so we'll give it a whack as well. This way you're not going to strip the thread. And we might as well do this one as well while we're here. Just a good whack with a big punch. You don't want to damage anything, but it just shock loads them and it makes them come in easier to undo. It's actually surprising how well that works. Right, so we can undo those now. Undo these Torx bits. So underneath here is the oil pump and an O-ring. Alright, so we'll pull that off. Okay, so there's the O-ring we're talking about. Always pays to see which way it came off. You can see that that was sitting on top of there, so we know which way it comes off. So I'll put those bits over there. And in here is the oil pump, which I probably can't get out without, so I'll just grab a magnet, just pull that out with a magnet, and there's your oil pump, okay? And then this is the bit we're talking about in here. This piece here goes down, links into the bottom, I think it's the camshaft, I'm not sure, we'll have a look when it goes over there, and this is what spins the oil pump. So if you don't put that in, you're not going to have any oil pressure, and things will all go nasty. The other thing in here is this little part, which is actually a filter. So it pays to check these out, because if these get blocked, obviously you're not going to have a lot of oil pressure as well. So we'll put that over there with the rest of it. And then I think I will unplug this wire off the oil pressure. Put that into there, a little oil pressure light. Leave the filter on, and then we'll just undo these bolts around here. Hopefully. Just undo these. Right, so they're all done. Now it always pays to pull these out and just check whether they're different lengths as you pull them out. Okay, I'd think these are all the same, but it's always a good idea, just in case there's one that's longer than the others, and then you go, oh my goodness, where does that go? So, I'll put that onto there. So I've now got all those undone. They're all out, okay. And I actually saw that come loose because the whole flywheel is now pushing up on the bottom. So this might just come off nice and easily, which it does. Right, so in here, this is the governor bit. So we need to remove that and block the hole. And then if we have a look into the engine here, so yeah, there we go. So this is where that that drive fits into the camshaft, and it drives the oil pump. So you've got to remember about that. The other thing to remember is there's marks on them, so that mark, when you spin it around, and I won't do it, but that mark should line up with a mark that's on the crank here somewhere, and somewhere on there there'll be a mark, but I can't see it at the moment. And so this is the other part of the governor. So we actually don't need this piece in here at all. So this whole piece here, hopefully, will just give it a bit of a muck around. I don't think there's anything holding that in. I could be wrong. Let's just check nothing goes in there. And I'll just get a little lever and put it underneath there. Oh, okay, so maybe it does need to have, there you go. Right, so we're just going to pull this out. We don't need this, we're going to throw it away. We'll probably, we could probably leave that in there actually. I'll have a look and see what's involved. We might end up pulling that out completely because that might just be a pain in the bum and it might fall out as well. So we'll have a look into that as well. So the next part we're going to do is we're going to pull out the piece in the sump and we're going to fill it up. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the governor rod. So it's got a couple of circlips here and here we need to pop off. Several ways to do this. You can either try and grab them with some long nose pliers and just pull them off. We'll try that first. Sometimes that works nice and easily and sometimes it doesn't. So for me today it's not going to work as easy as I'd like. So the other way you can do it is you can have some circuit pliers, you can put them on there and squeeze it out. I'm just going to show you these different ways. Okay, that's not going to work very well for me either. My favourite way is actually just to get a couple of screwdrivers, put one on there, and usually that comes off first time. It's close. Get in the right place again. Sometimes this works first time, sometimes it doesn't, so no biggie, just take your time and don't get stressed about these things. Something will happen. Gonna make a liar out of me today. Nearly there. And then we'll just scoop it off from the other side as well. Great. And another one here to do. So again, you can do the same thing, or however you get them off is up to you. Like I say, sometimes one way works, sometimes another way doesn't work so well. So we'll just try and get this in the right place again. It's playing games with me today. Yeah, okay, so there we go, that will work properly. Okay, so we've got those off, we don't need those anymore. So then we can slide this out, get that out of there, get the little bit out of there as well. And then we can pull this whole part out because we don't need this anymore. So this is the throwaway bit we don't need. So then we're going to put this up on the end. There's a little seal on the end of here. We want to pop that out. We don't need that anymore. And then we're left with a hole in here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to tap a thread into here and then we're going to put a bolt on top of it. So you need probably a 12 mil. So I've got a 12 mil bolt here. And I think it's a 1.5 thread. Get yourself some of these copper washers off, you know, your favourite place. Get yourself a aluminium one, put it on there so we know it's going to seal. We'll just check whether it's going to work on the hole that's there. If I can remember where it is, over there. Okay, so we might have to put a bigger seal on there. That's okay, we'll work that out in a minute, but the bolt's actually going to seal across the top, so we might just put some silicone around the outside. We'll see what we end up with. But first thing we're going to do is drill it out. So like I said to you, this is a 12 by 1.5, which should be the same thread. So you can always check it by your tap, putting it against it and make sure they line up so we know that's the same thread. So drill it out to the right size. So what the rule of thumb is, if that's a 12 and it's a 1.5, minus 1.5 from 12, it ends up with 10.5. So you need a 10.5 drill, which I've got here, and we'll just drill this hole out. That's gone in easily, so that's actually all good. And then we'll just grab this part here, a little bit of a lube on the old, hang on, you gotta do this, don't you? A little lube on here, close this up so we don't lose all of those. And then we're going to run a tap through here. So I'm just going to put the tap in here, and all going well, it should tap a thread into here is what we're planning to do. It should go in relatively easy. And we'll just wind that in carefully. So now we're just making a thread that bolt can go into, which is actually doing quite a good job there. Right, so that's now threaded. And then we'll just have a bit of a look-see and make sure we've got a thread in there. Yep, we have. Give it a little bit of a screw it in there. You sort of want to get the swarf out if you can. Yep. So then we'll grab the bolt. We'll just check the bolt's going to work. So that bolt's going to work quite nicely. I'll just check it's going to tighten up. 19. Yep. Okay, so that tightens up not too bad. So what we'll do is, I think because the washer is not actually wide enough to seal on the outside here, because that washer is just going to sit inside there and it's not going to seal well. So I think what we'll do is we'll just leave that face like that. We'll put some silicone around here, and when we bolt it up, the silicone will make the seal. So to do that properly, I'm going to have to give it a bit of a clean. So I'll get me white spirits here and give that a bit of a clean up. I'm going to give the surface area a bit of a clean up. So what I might also do is I might give this a clean up with a file, so we've got a nice flat surface to work on. So I'm going to basically just get my file, lay it on here. I'm just going to give it a bit of a clean up with the file. It just means that we're going to have a nice surface area for the sealant to sit on, and it shouldn't leak. Alright, I'll just give it a bit of a squirt in there. That just cleans it out. So now we have that area cleaned up, so we've got a nice surface area. We'll grab the bolt. We'll give this a bit of a clean up on the edges that it's on there. And then we'll just get a bit of silicone, we'll put it on the bolt, and then we'll put it in and tighten it up, and then that should be fine. So, get some silicone here somewhere. Okay. Yeah, what we'll do is we'll actually just put it on this bit here. And don't want to come out, so we'll just clean the end of this out so it can actually come out. So it can be a pain in the bum sometimes. You think you've got it ready to go and it doesn't go. So we'll just give that a little bit of a helping hand, and there we go. So we're just going to put some silicone on the end of it around here. Make sure you get it all around. I think that'll do the job. Grab the bolt. We know both surfaces are pretty clean. We'll bolt this in. And we'll give it a bit of a tighten up. I think that should be about right. You don't want to go too tight because you'll strip the thread out, so that should be good. And then the silicone that's on there should also stop it from coming loose. Alright, so that's done. All done, it should be fine. So the next thing we need to do is we need to clean the gasket off around here and clean the gasket off around the other part that's on the sump. And so I'll go ahead and do most of that, and then I'll come back when we're all done. Alright, so we're just cleaning up the sump now. So I use a scraper and get the worst of it off with the scraper. Just to start it off with, it's not too bad. It takes a little bit of time, and you don't want to scratch the aluminium more than you have to. Just get the worst of it off. Takes a little bit of time. Not as worth it because the seal will stick. Then what I do is I grab one of these things. We used to call them GRDs, whatever they are. They're just like a plastic adapter that goes into here. There's different types you can get. Basically it's plastic, so it's a really good thing to use to clean it up. Just takes the last bits off and makes sure that it's clean and flat. Pressure on it, you just takes the bits off that you didn't get off with the scraper. And you look all nice and shiny. Right, it's pretty good. So then what you do is, because we've got to put this back on again, what I tend to do is I knock the seal out. So I come on the inside of here, and I'm just going to give the seal a bit of a tap. Let's get a knockometer. Make sure you don't damage the seal when you're taking it out. You still may have to replace the seal. Like if you were rebuilding the engine, you'd probably replace the seal. But so this is the seal. I've taken it out. Doesn't feel too bad. They have a rubber, a metal ring on the back of them. Just means that when you put it back on again, it's much easier to put on. So you also need to clean out all that stuff in there. So you get the old compressed air out and get the worst of it out. And again, you need to clean the surfaces. So I use white spirits. I think it's a really good stuff for cleaning. Just put a bit of a squirt on the rag and just give it a wipe round, because I want to make sure that it's relatively clean and that the silicone sealer that I use is going to actually stick to it, because there's no grease or oil on there. So always give it a clean up with that. That's all pretty good. Right, so that's that done. So effectively now what we can do is we can put the two halves back together again. I'm actually going to leave this piece in here. I tried to pull it out. It's stuck in there real good. It's not going to come out, so I'm happy to just leave it there. So I'll get my trusty silicone. I've already cleaned up this one. I'll put a bead of silicone around here. You don't need heaps, but obviously you want to make sure you've got enough on there so that it actually seals it. I mean, you could get another gasket, that's fine. I was just tended to just seal them up with silicone. Okay, so back to the beginning. Now I like to go over it with my finger and just give it a little bit of a swipe around, just so that it gives a pretty even finish on it. And then I know that it's covered everywhere it needs to cover. So there's not heaps, but there's enough to seal what we need to seal. Because the surfaces are clean and they're flat, it shouldn't be that much of a problem. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think we've got enough around there. Yep, that'll be enough. Right, so now that both these surfaces are clean, what we're going to do is we're going to grab this and we're going to put it up the right way, and hopefully it's just going to drop down relatively nicely where we need to go. Over the crank, locate it on the dowels that go in. Okay, so that's sitting there now. Now obviously it's not going to go right down at the moment because we have the crankshaft sitting and it's pushing the whole thing up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to start the bolts in. So I'm just going to grab the bolts. Now I could lift the engine up so it's not sitting on the crank and it would drop down. Entirely up to you. As long as you make sure it's all sitting where it should be, there shouldn't really be an issue with anything. So I'm just going to throw these in here. Okay, so we noticed that all those bolts were the same length, so it didn't matter. I'm going to get my my strong arm bar. Okay, and then I just like to wind this down by hand, just to make sure that it all seals up like it do, and I do opposite sides, just to make sure that we're all happy with the way it's coming. So that's come down really nicely. I can see the silicone is just starting to squeeze out. That's good. So I'll just tighten these down by hand. I tend to not use power tools so much to do things up because it's very easy to cross thread something and end up with a drama. So I'm happy to just use the either a really slow power tool or just do it by hand, and then that way I know that I'm not cross threading and I haven't got issues, because you don't always get the feel when you're using those sort of things. So obviously we need to torque these down as well, which we'll find out with the torque is in a moment on the old trusty chart that I've got on the wall. Right, so I'll put that onto there, put that onto there, just about tighten them all up. Right. Okay. Right, so I'll get the torque for those in a second, but we'll just move along a little bit further. We've got the oil pump to put in and the pieces that go on there. So again, always pays to give it a bit of a clean up when we're on here. And I'll grab the oil pump pieces from here. I'll grab all those. Oh, that's good. Throwing away the oil pump. It's not always a good thing to have. Alright, so I'll get my clean rag here. Oh, it's not the clean rag, it's the dirty rag. Okay, so I'm just going to give this surface again, I'm going to give it a bit of a wipe around here so that it seals up on the O-ring. It's okay. So we need to put in the outer piece of the oil pump, goes in. And then the inner piece of the oil pump, oh hang on, we need to put this in first. So we've got to sit this into the right place. So when it goes down so far, we've got to turn it until it drops in. So you'll turn it around. There you go, now it's dropped in. So we know that's in the right place. Then we can see where that one is. And we can make sure that it drops in onto there as well. There it is. So that's now locked in. And so it's going to turn, okay? Then we'll grab our piece here. And the O-ring will seal on it. And again, we're going to look where that was. So it was sitting there like that. So we'll bolt this onto here. And, oh, hang on. Don't forget to put the filter in. So the filter's got to go in as well. So the filter goes in like that. And then make sure it's around the right way. Bolt that on there. Get these Torx bits into here. Bolt those onto there. And we'll tighten these up. You should tighten these up evenly too. Don't tighten up one and then tighten them all up. Tighten them up evenly, otherwise the O-ring might not seat properly. So I'll put these on here. Okay, just nip them all up and then give them a nip up. And I always go around and double check them afterwards just to make sure that they're all good and tight, which they are. Okay, last thing to do is to grab the oil seal that we had before. Put a little bit of oil around the seal itself. Put the oil seal over here and make sure that it's sitting correctly over the crankshaft. This is where if you don't get it right, it's going to leak. So we want to try and get that sitting as good as we can. And then if you're lucky, you have a something like this that sits over here. And we'll get our knockometer again. And hopefully we can just tap this down. Alright. And make sure it sits evenly. Looks pretty good and it's sitting where it should be, so hopefully that won't leak. Sometimes when you remove these seals they will leak and you'll have to put a new one in, but that's just the name of the game sometimes. So other than that, so that is basically how we put the pull the governor out. And the reason we pull it out is we don't want those pieces which fly apart to come off in the engine and cause damage to it. So we blocked the hole, that's all sorted. We don't need to put anything else back in there again. Now I do have to torque down these bolts. I'm going to go away and find out what the torque is now and then I'll torque them up. But basically that's how we remove the governor on a V twin for a Briggs motor. Yeah, that's basically it for Baz's Garage today. So until next time, Baz's Garage.